Hello everyone. In this session, we are continuing with acid-base balance or regulation of pH in the body. In the first video, we looked at the blood buffers, how they maintain pH at 7.4, or what we call between 7.35 to 7.45 for the arterial blood, which was the first line mechanism. So in this session, we're going to look at the second mechanism and the third mechanism of body pH regulation, whereby we're going to look at renal and respiratory mechanism, whereby respiratory mechanism is the second line. If the blood buffers, the bicarbonates, the protein buffer, the phosphate buffer, and the hemoglobin buffer fails, the body reverts to the lungs, whereby the respiratory mechanism, that is inspiration and expiration, is going to do a role. Then if it fails, then it reverts to a renal mechanism. So this is what we are going to discuss in this session. And if you are a new person on this channel, you haven't subscribed, please, we urge you to go to the subscription button and subscribe so that you can always notified whenever we release videos. So let us get started. So we are saying respiratory mechanism, and this respiratory mechanism is the second line. We say that this is the second line for maintaining body pH at 7.4. This is the second line mechanism. And this second line mechanism is done by the lungs together with the respiratory center. And this respiratory center in the medulla, this one is found in the medulla and the pons, whereby in the medulla we have the dorsal group and the ventral respiratory group. Then in the pons we have the pneumotaxic center and apneustic center regulating inspiration, whereby apneustic center, it comes from the word apnesis, which increases inspiration, then pneumotaxis decreases inspiration. So they work hand in hand. That's what we are calling the respiratory center in the medulla and the pons, as we shall see it more in physiology. So how does the lung maintain the pH? That is the blood pH and the fluid. So we're going to see that in case of increased hydrogen ions, that is, you can ask yourself where are they coming from, that in any condition which reduces breathing rate, in case of decrease in breathing rate, or in what you can call respiratory rate, if there is a decrease in respiratory rate, it is going to lead to the accumulation of carbon dioxide. And when carbon dioxide accumulates in blood, it is going to react with the water. To form what we call weak carbonic acid. And this weak carbonic acid which is formed, it is a weak acid, so it dissociates partially to give hydrogen ions plus the bicarbonate ions. So these hydrogen ions which are being released from the dissociation of the weak carbonic acid are the one that increase the hydrogen ions in blood and body fluid. So what happens? Due to reduced respiratory rate, that is reduced inspiration and expiration, that is breathing out, carbon dioxide accumulates in the blood, then it combines with water to form weak carbonic acid. And sometimes this one occurs in the presence of carbonic anhydrase enzyme, whereby carbonic anhydrase is the one that catalyzes the formation of the weak acid, and it immediately dissociates to increase hydrogen ions, and these hydrogen ions have ability to decrease body pH below 7.35. But how does the body? So when this one happens, accumulation of hydrogen ions from accumulated carbon dioxide is going to be detected by the respiratory center. The chemoreceptors within the aortic arch of the heart and the lungs are going to detect increase in hydrogen ions. Those are the chemoreceptors. And these chemoreceptors are going to take information to the respiratory center that is in the medulla and the pons, and it is going to stimulate that decrease. Increased hydrogen ions, which are decreasing pH, are going to stimulate the respiratory center in the medulla and the pons, majorly by stimulating the apneistic center to do what we call to send signals where to the intercostal muscles of the ribs together with the diaphragm. And when it sends to the intercostal muscles of the rib cage, they are going to stimulate increased breathing rate. Increased breathing rate. And when increased breathing rate happens, it is going to expel this accumulated carbon dioxide. So we are going to find out that increased breathing rate is going to pump out carbon dioxide, so leading to decrease in carbon dioxide levels in the blood. And when carbon dioxide levels decrease, meaning we cannot form more carbonic acid, and this one will turn the pH to normal. Because the cause was increased accumulation of carbon dioxide, which was leading to increased hydrogen ions. And when hydrogen ions go high, detected by the chemoreceptors, take information to the respiratory center, and the respiratory center increases breathing rate, hence expelling out the accumulated carbon dioxide, and then bring back the hydrogen ions, pumping out the hydrogen ions, bring back the pH to normal. The pH comes back to normal, which is 7.4. So this is how the lungs deal with acidosis, what we call respiratory acidosis, because carbon dioxide is the one that causes respiratory acidosis, and this is what happens to bring it or to collect the respiratory acidosis due to accumulation of carbon dioxide. But if the respiratory center continues to be stimulated to increase the breathing rate, one point is going to reach whereby the carbon dioxide is depleted. Carbon dioxide is depleted, and when it is depleted, it means that this one will result into increased bicarbonate reserves. Increased bicarbonate or the hydroxyl will increase due to depletion of carbon dioxide, which causes depletion of hydrogen ions. So when hydrogen ions are low in blood and body fluid, it is going to go and inhibit the respiratory center. So decreased levels of hydrogen ions in blood due to increased breathing rate is going to go and inhibit the respiratory center in the medulla and the pons, and after inhibiting, it inhibits the respiratory center, and when it is inhibited, it is going to decrease. It's going to lead to decrease in the breathing rate. So breathing rate decreases, and if the breathing rate decreases by inhibiting the dorsal respiratory group and the ventral respiratory group, so there is no stimulation of the rib cage and the intercostal muscles, especially the external. So when they are not stimulated, the breathing is going to be shallow, it is going to be low, and decreased breathing rate is going to lead to accumulation. It's going to allow accumulation of carbon dioxide, and this accumulation of carbon dioxide is going to lead to formation of weak carbonic acid by combining with water, and this weak carbonic acid is going to dissociate to give hydrogen ions, and these hydrogen ions, they are the ones that are going to combine with the bicarbonate so that the pH, which was high, comes back to normal. Because what was causing increase in the pH, because we said increase in the bicarbonate and increase in the hydroxyl can lead to respiratory alkalosis. This one can lead to increase in the pH beyond 7.4. So when the pH goes beyond 7.4, which we call alkalosis, increase in the pH, this is alkalosis. It is the one, alkalosis is due to decreased hydrogen ions, which decrease in hydrogen ions go and inhibit the respiratory center, and the respiratory center also inhibit the breathing rate, hence leading to decrease the breathing rate. And when there is a decrease in the breathing rate, carbon dioxide accumulates, form weak carbonic acid, and this weak carbonic acid produces hydrogen ions which come and buffer the bicarbonate and the hydroxyl which we are increasing, whereby these hydrogen ions can bind with the hydroxyl to form water, can react with the hydroxyl which we are increasing pH to form water, and also it can easily bind with the bicarbonate to form weak carbonic acid, which will not change the pH so much. So this is the mechanism of action of respiratory or the lungs in maintaining acid-base balance, so that our body pH is maintained between 7.35 to 7.45. So this is the second line mechanism of maintaining acid-base balance in the body. So after looking at this, in summary, we can illustrate it in this way, that in case there is, in summary, we can do this, that in case there is increase in hydrogen ions, this one will lead to acidosis, and this acidosis is going to stimulates the respiratory center, and after stimulating the respiratory center, it is going to increase ventilation. It increases ventilation, that is breathing rate, so that we can expel the carbon dioxide, increase the partial pressures of carbon dioxide, which was leading to increase in hydrogen ions. And when we increase ventilation, this is increase in ventilation, we are able to expel the carbon dioxide and the pH goes back to normal. And when it continues, increase in ventilation can lead to decrease in hydrogen ions. And when there is a decrease in hydrogen ions, we said what stimulates the respiratory center is increase. So if it decreases, it switches off the respiratory center. And when the respiratory center is switched off, this one, decrease in hydrogen ions are going to inhibit the respiratory center. And when the respiratory center is inhibited, it is going to decrease ventilation. It decreases ventilation, hence also bring back pH to normal. And we said increase in hydrogen ion is acidosis, decrease in hydrogen ions is alkalosis. This is alkalosis, increase in pH. So this is how the renal, this is how the lungs maintain blood-body pH. After looking at this, now we can look at the renal mechanism, whereby we are going to see how does the kidney function to maintain body pH. And the renal mechanism, its major aim is to increase bicarbonate reserves. So for it, its major function is to reabsorb bicarbonate so that it increases the levels of bicarbonate in the blood as it is expelling, as it excretes hydrogen ions in the form of acids. Whereby acids, we are going to say acids like phosphoric acid, or what you call dihydrogen phosphate. We're going to see ammonium ions and so forth. So we are seeing the renal mechanism maintains the body pH at 7.4 by reabsorbing bicarbonate so that there is enough bicarbonate reserves in blood and excreting hydrogen ions. That is how it is going to work. Maintaining hydrogen bicarbonate ions, excreting hydrogen ions so that it can maintain acid-base balance. And this is we have zoomed our kidney nephron. And this kidney nephron, this is the lumen of the kidney nephron. Then this is the tubular tissue, or the walls of the kidney nephron. So if I can draw a kidney nephron, if this was the tubular part of the kidney nephron, this is what we are calling the lumen, that is inside. Then the tubular tissue, this is the tubular tissue which we have zoomed. Then here there is blood. So this is what we are doing. So we're going to see what happens in the lumen, in the tubular tissue, and in the blood saturation. That is the discussion we are going to see. And the first mechanism, renal mechanism, the first renal mechanism is secretion. You can call it secretion or excretion of hydrogen ions in exchange with sodium ions. That is the first mechanism. That in the tubular tissue, whereby when we have carbon dioxide, this carbon dioxide can react with water in the presence of carbonic anhydrase enzyme to form weak carbonic acid, and this weak carbonic acid can dissociate to give hydrogen ions plus the bicarbonate ions. And these bicarbonate ions, they diffuse to blood for storage, because we have said the major thing is to reserve the bicarbonate. So the bicarbonate diffuse into the blood saturation so that they can be there to maintain the pH. Whereas in the lumen, we have sodium ions which were reabsorbed via the glomerulus. So these sodium ions, as it is moving in the tubular tissue, then it continues to blood. It is exchanged with the hydrogen ions. So we are going to see when sodium ions enter by active transport, or it is reabsorbed by active transport, what happens, it exchanges. That's why we are looking at exchange. It exchanges with sodium to balance the charge. So we find there is secretion of hydrogen ions in the lumen to balance the positive charge lost by sodium. So this is what we call exchange of hydrogen ions with sodium ions. So after producing this hydrogen ion in the lumen, which is the first mechanism, we are going to see how it is excreted. This hydrogen ion which is produced, it is going to do a lot. One, it can easily combine with the phosphate. We have here monophosphate in the lumen. We have hydrogen phosphate in the lumen, and this hydrogen phosphate in the lumen can easily combine with the hydrogen ions, and when hydrogen phosphate combines with hydrogen ion, it is able to form dihydrogen phosphate, and it can be excreted in urine. So the second mechanism can be excretion of hydrogen ion in the form of dihydrogen phosphate. That is another mechanism. As we are excreting these hydrogen ions, then we are able to maintain the pH. We are able to maintain the pH. That is another mechanism. Then another mechanism is that this hydrogen ion which was produced in this, it can easily combine with, in the tissue, there is what we call glutamine amino acid. And this glutamine amino acid can be deaminated to produce ammonia. This is a deamination process in the presence of glutaminase enzyme, and this glutaminase deaminates the glutamine to form ammonia. And this ammonia, when it is produced in the tuberous fluid, it diffuses in the rumen as ammonium. And remember, we produced hydrogen ions. So these hydrogen ions can at the same time come and combine with the produced ammonia. The produced ammonia, and the hydrogen ion combines with the ammonia to form ammonium ions. Combines to form ammonium ions, and these ammonium ions are also excreted in urine, hence maintaining the pH. So another third mechanism is excretion of hydrogen ion in the form of ammonium ions. This is another mechanism how the kidneys maintain pH. And we said that still this hydrogen ion which is produced in the rumen, there is some bicarbonate. It can still also combine with the bicarbonate to form the weak carbonic acid. This weak carbonic acid can also produce water and carbon dioxide, which carbon dioxide diffused to form the weak carbonic acid in the presence of carbonic anhydrase, which produces the bicarbonate and the bicarbonate. So another fourth mechanism is the reabsorption of bicarbonate, which was supposed to be number 2, the absorption of bicarbonate in blood. And when it goes in the blood, it finds there sodium, and it can combine with the sodium to form sodium hydrogen carbonate, which is the weak base, and it can help us to maintain the pH. So that's why we said in the beginning, the renal mechanism is to reserve the bicarbonate, or to make sure the bicarbonates are reserved as we are excreting hydrogen, and hydrogen is excreted in the form of the dihydrogen phosphate ammonium ions after being exchanged with sodium. So the first mechanism, maybe let me put them in order, whereby this reabsorption can be number 2. So number 2 was supposed to be bicarbonate reabsorption, whereby when it is reabsorption in the blood, it is the one that is also going. So this is supposed to be number 2. Number 2, then this one becomes number 3, then this one becomes number 4. So these are the mechanisms whereby number 1 is exchange. This is number 1. Exchange of hydrogen ions with sodium. Then number 2 is reabsorption of the bicarbonate in the blood. Then number 3 is excretion of hydrogen in the form of the phosphate in urine. That was number 3. And number 4 is excretion of hydrogen ions in the form of the ammonium, which are produced from the deamination of glutamine amino acid, forming ammonia, which diffuse in the rumen. And once the diffusers in the lumen, it combines with the hydrogen ions to form ammonium ions. These ammonium ions cannot be reabsorbed back in the tubular tissue, so it is also excreted in urine. This one becomes mechanism number 4, how the kidney maintains acid-base balance. So please don't forget these 4 mechanisms: exchange of hydrogen ions with sodium, then reabsorption of the bicarbonate, which later combines with the sodium to form sodium hydrogen carbonate, which maintains the blood pH, then excretion of hydrogen by the dihydrogen phosphate in urine, and also excretion of hydrogen by ammonium ions in urine. Thank you so much for learning with us. Please remember, subscribe if you haven't. That is the only support you can give us so that you can continue being notified and learning at Medical Sciences. Thank you so much.